Hello and welcome back to the channel. So today I wanted to make a build video on Gyre. So Gyre, if you don't know, she's the frame that you can farm from Zariman bounties in the Chrysalis. So for Gyre's abilities, your passive, you have a 10% chance to deal critical damage for each electrical status that affects the enemy. Your first ability, Arc Sphere, you throw a sphere out and it'll do damage on impact and then it'll shock nearby enemies. Your 2 is Mag Pull, but you can throw it and detonate it whenever you feel like. Your 3, Cathode Grace, you gain increased crit chance and energy regen, and each kill will extend the duration. Your 4, Rotor Swell, you get an AoE around you that'll shock enemies nearby, and then whenever you get a crit, it'll do a giant, discharge that'll hit all nearby enemies. Now, I want to preface, I have 2 Archon shards here. You don't need them per se, but they will help your build a lot if you do. So I have a casting speed just because your cast on 3 and 4 are kind of slow, and this just kind of speeds it up a little bit. And then we have this one here, which I plan to get 3 more of these eventually. But 15% ability damage on enemies affected by the electrical status, which luckily all of our abilities do electrical damage, so that's no big deal. So with the abilities covered, I want to show you guys how her abilities work. So for your 1, you can throw this ball, and as soon as it hits the floor, it'll activate, or you can throw it up in the air and activate it manually, so you can kind of throw them all up in the air so that you get the effects without having this ball in the way. And then your 2, you throw it, it'll roll, and then once it collides with something, it'll activate, or after its duration is reached, it'll activate. Or you can manually trigger it, so that it'll activate as soon as you press the button again. Now, your 3 and 4 are a little bit different, because you activate your 3 and it gives you increased crit, and then your 4 will slam nearby enemies whenever you get crits. And then as you get kills, you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner, our durations for both of them are going up, and they will continue to go up as long as we are getting kills. And with this setup, I believe the durations cap out at 50 seconds each, 60 on the 4 and about 50 on the 3, I believe. So this build also works really well as a low-level nuke, but you can also use it in Steel Path just to stun enemies and everything like that. With Gyre's abilities covered, we can go ahead and hop into a Steel Path mission, and I can show you how she works in Steel Path. Alrighty, now we are here in the Steel Path Survival in Helminth, and I can show you how this build works. So you really want a high kill per minute with this build, because you want to keep your 3 and 4 active all the time, ideally, because the longer you can keep these active, the longer you can keep slaying enemies. And we came to Helminth because Gyre really works best in tighter corridors, because you can keep hitting people with everything you have. And with this setup, we have 2 augments on, one for her 4 and one for her 1. So as we shoot bullets through her spheres, they will gain increased electrical damage. So I'll go ahead and throw them on the floor now. And then you can see here, you just kind of spray around, and then you can throw your ball and do damage. But I've been playing Gyre a lot lately because she's a frame that I always wanted, but was never willing to go farm for her. But I finally decided it's time, and she's great. I always heard online she was kind of underwhelming or bad, so I never wanted to go farm her. But, I'm not sure. She seems pretty good. I always liked Gyre thematically. I saw the steampunk skin came out for Gyre, so I was like, well, you know what? No better time than now, I guess, to go farm her. And I'm glad I did, because this has been my main frame for about a month now, I think. Since last video when I made Temple. She's been the main one that I've been running in all content, pretty much. And yeah, you see we have in the bottom right, we have 55 seconds, 60-second cap on our 3, and then we have 80 seconds on our 4. And as long as you have high KPM, you will never have to worry about these abilities going on cooldown. And we don't have Energize on this set because we're using Arcane Stretch, or Archon Stretch, my bad, which gives us the energy regen when we get electrical kills, so that's pretty much all the time. The only issues with Gyre that I would say I've come across since playing her more, she has some survivability issues, which I've tried to remedy with Arcane Aegis, which helps a lot of the time, but in areas like this where they just spam these Eximus units everywhere, it can be kind of a pain. So if you want to, you could go Helminth on her. And a Helminth option that I would recommend would be Pillage, because that's one that I plan to try out on Gyre. Because I'm using her with this set as a shield tank, sort of, kinda. And Pillage, you armor strip, but you also steal the shields. So it'll refill your own while hurting the enemies, which is really nice. If you are going to try that out, though, the ability I would subsume If you don't want to do the weapons platform Gyre, you can get rid of her 1. But if you don't care for her the mag pole, which is what I'm planning to get rid of, then you can get rid of her 2. Because her 2 doesn't really provide anything aside from the crowd control. So I could see you getting rid of that if you do want another option. Alrighty. So we are back in the back rooms, and like I said, for Helminth subsumes, I would go for something like Pillage, or you could go for Petrify if you want, but Pillage gives you a little bit of shield restoration on top of armor stripping. But with that being covered, I'll go ahead and talk about the fashion for Gyre, and then I will go over the actual build. So for appearance, we have her Vorngeist skin, because I really like the steampunk aesthetic of it. For attachments, we have all the parts that come with it, and then we have the Soul Eye Ephemera, which you get from the Coda Liches, and then we have the Stardust Signa from Flare, I believe this comes with. And then for we have no Syandana and no sigils or anything, and I'm using the Gyre Noble animation because I like it better than her Agile. But for colors, our primary, any white will do, but I'm using this one here on the Potentia color palette. For secondary, we have this black from Light and Shadows palette, same thing for tertiary. For accents, you could leave this default if you wanted to, but this skin was a little weird. You can kind of see if you look closely that the attachments and the helmet doesn't quite match, because the colors on these are a little weird. You can see that with the purple on here as well compared to on the back. It's also not quite matching. But for this purple, it is this one here on the Eminence color palette. And then for our attachments, we just copied them over, so it's the exact same. And then for our build, I have 2 builds for you today. We have my main setup, which I use pretty much all the time, and then I have a budget setup for those of you who are running through regular star chart, or you just don't quite have all the tools I do. So for our aura, anyone will work, but I'm using Corrosive Projection just to kind of get rid of some enemy armor, but also for the capacity. We have Power Drift for ability strength and chance at knockdown. If you want, this is a flexible slot. You could throw on Sure-Footed if you want, or Coaction Drift, etc. Then we have Blind Rage for some ability strength at the cost of efficiency. Overextended for range at the cost of strength. Transient Fortitude for strength at the cost of duration. Flow for energy, which brings us up to 644 energy. Primed Continuity for ability duration. We have Archon Stretch, which gives us some ability range, and abilities that will deal electrical damage will restore 2 energy per second for 5 seconds, which is really nice synergy because all of our abilities do electrical damage. So that's like a insta-lock on her. Same thing with Archon Vitality on like Flare or Ember. And then we have 2 augments. We have Cathode Grace Augment. Eliminating an enemy while Cathode Grace is active will release an additional discharge with 200% damage and Extended duration by the same amount. And then we have Conductive Sphere, which is for the weapons platform version of Gyre, which is what I'm kind of running. Projectiles that pass through your sphere have a guaranteed electrical status and do 75% electricity damage, and these do stack, so you can throw all 3 bubbles down and you'll get this effect 3 times. And then for Arcanes, we have Aegis for shield regeneration, and then Molt Augmented for some more strength. Which, Molt Augmented is kind of a flex slot here. You could throw anything you want here. Aegis is here just for shield stuff, to try to give us some more survivability, because I do not have Pillage over my 2 quite yet. And then for our budget setup, Corrosive Projection, anything will work here. You could throw Dreamer's Bond here if that's all you have. Any aura will work. You just want one that's high energy. You don't need Power Drift. This is completely removed from here for the most part. If you want it, you can throw it in here, and that will be great for you, but you don't have to have it. Intensify for some ability strength. Range for range. Augur Secrets for some ability strength. If you don't have this, that's perfectly fine. You don't need it. It just gives you a little more strength. Augur Reach for more ability range, and this also gives us a Baby Brief Respite, which will make it to where energy spent on abilities is converted into shields. We have Flow for energy maximum, which puts us up to 480, which is still respectable. We have Continuity for duration. You can see we actually have more duration on this set than my usual. We have Cathode Grace and Conductive Sphere. These two are kind of a must for this build, mostly Cathode Current. You could get away without Conductive Sphere, but Cathode Current's really nice to keep your durations going constantly, plus you get the 200% damage discharge from your 4. And then for Arcanes, we don't really have any, but if you have Arcanes, anything you want to throw here that you feel beneficial to your build as a budget set will work just fine. Now when it comes to weapons for Gyre, I'm running Ceto, which isn't exactly ideal because it only has a 45% crit chance, and with her, you want to do crits. So weapons that I would pair her with would be something like the AX-52 is a crit monster, Burst on Prime. You could go for the EF5 Jupiter, which I'll have a video on that coming soon, if you build it for crits. You could go with any bow. You could go with Fenmore if you do build it crit, but I know most people don't. You could go something like Reconifex, Stalta, any crit weapon really. The new Synapse that just came out would be really, really nice if you go all in on crits. Any crit weapon will do you justice on Gyre. And for melees, I pretty much exclusively am using Praetos for this parkour velocity, but any melee you have will work just fine, to be honest. And then for secondary, same thing. Any secondary will work really, but I've been loving the dual Toxica, or Torxica, whatever, really lately. I've been really enjoying these weapons, which I'll have a video coming on these here soon as well, along with some other weapons, because I've been collecting weapons, and I have 2 new frames that are being built right now. With all that covered, I hope you guys enjoyed the video nonetheless. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you guys in the next video.